Hello, New Brighton and beyond. You're listening to me, Justin Hopper, live on air here at New Brighton Radio. This is the fourth instalment of the fabulous new show, La Vida Liverpool Live, which is bringing you Boss tunes, like you've just heard, and Boss conversation every Thursday here on the tropical banks of the Mersey at New Brighton Radio, based in the beautiful Vale Park. Now, you'll probably know from last week, we had Kiltman as a special guest on, a local legend. The last week's show, wow, on the global Mixcloud charts, we're currently 20th in the world on the community radio charts. So it's safe to say the show's going pretty well. We had, last week we had listeners, thank you very much, in Texas, I think in California, in Ireland, in Scotland. So La Vida Liverpool Live on New Brighton Radio is going global, baby. And this week we're actually having a live stream. So not only are we having this live on air this evening, this incredible and profound, thought-provoking show this evening, we're also obviously going to upload it to Mixcloud as ever, so you can listen back to the show. But we're actually going to have it live streamed, so you'll be able to see a video of this show and see what goes on behind the scenes, and see me flapping, not knowing what buttons to press, and nearly blowing the station up. But with no further ado, let's get on to this week's guest. So every Thursday we have a Boss special guest, a legend in their own right, who is, like me, I guess, trying to change the world, make the world a better place. I do it through the media, and my guests do it through whatever their calling is in life. This week's special guest is a man I admire so very much, a local legend for sure. A man you'll all know very well, Dan Davies, born and bred in New Brighton, a self-made entrepreneur. Dan Davies has done a lot of big things in the world. He founded the biggest alcohol licensing company in the UK, CPL. He's chairman of the Institute of Licensing, board member of UK Hospitality. But what we all love him for so much is, rather than just sort of get rich and get fat, he basically, threw all his hard-earned money into his local area, his beloved New Brighton. We all know, I think everyone in the country and possibly the world knows about the New Brighton regeneration scheme in the Victoria Quarter there in New Brighton. Amazing street art, an incredible community spirit. Dan's pretty much, obviously he's got some great people around him, but pretty much single-handedly created. So for the next 2 hours we're going to be playing some Boss tunes. That one was selected by Dan. I admire Dan so much, I've done a very rare thing and allowed Dan to choose all the tunes tonight, so if there's some dodgy ones there, you know not to blame me this week, okay? So yes, we've got Dan Davies here, live on air. Dan, how are you doing?
Hi Justin, to start with, thanks for having me on today, mate. It's been quite a hectic day, so I've been at Liverpool University. I have the pleasure of addressing about 110 students, first year students, who are doing an architecture course, with some engineers in there as well, and they've taken on New Brighton as a project. So I've given them a list of things we want, like another pier back, nice. And some some decent sort of architecture going in as well to complement all the existing stuff, particularly some of the old things that haven't been demolished or have fallen to the wayside, because New Brighton used to have some amazing buildings, which will come on to later. Sure. in the show. And if you want to know about the opening track, Two Tribes.
Yes, that was your choice, of course.
Yeah, well, obviously Frank goes to Hollywood, a Liverpool band, really out there sort of in the 80s. I remember growing up to them. And Two Tribes was obviously about the conflict between Russia and America. And it just struck me in the 80s, we started off the 80s with things like, from the Falklands War to the miners' strike and things. By the mid-80s, we were trying to feed the world, with Live Aid, Band Aid. We were just saying no to drugs. Yeah. So that one worked out. That was with Nancy Reagan. And there was a real feeling towards the end of the 80s, the Berlin Wall had come down. And I think we had an opportunity for East and West to actually cohabit and and work together. And it's a sad testament to the times. We sit here today just talking about a standoff in Ukraine. Yeah. And you think, how was it that we exited that decade with so much, potential to go in the right direction? fast forward this period of time and brinksmanship again, and that's really the sort of story of a lot of things. People don't look back in history, and they don't look, and learn lessons, and see opportunities missed and things like that.
Well, yeah, indeed, music's a powerful tool as well, and a powerful way of bringing about change. I'm glad you chose, a local music artist for your first track, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Obviously, you are an ambassador for the local community, and over the next couple of hours, we're going to be talking a lot about the amazing project you've embarked upon here in New Brighton, and really transformed the local area. I can't wait to really get into that and to get inside the mind of Dan Davies to figure out sort of what propelled him to do this, because as I mentioned beginning of the show just now, a lot of people, if they're very successful, they'll like to go on holidays, enjoy themselves, live a very easy life from that point onwards, and Dan has certainly not done that. In fact, he's, as I say, done the opposite, thrown everything into New Brighton, and hats off to him. So before we start, getting into the nitty gritty, just want to remind people that this show, La Vida Liverpool Live, we try to make it as interactive as possible. The first 3 shows, we've had some great messages from all over the world. So if you want to get involved, guys, if you've got any questions for Dan, because we're going to be going into his career and all the attributes and the hard work and the things he's done to get to where he is today. If you've got any questions for Dan, if you want to pick his brains about anything, or if you want to know a bit more about the plans for the future in New Brighton, please email newbrightonradio@gmail.com. That's newbrightonradio@gmail.com. You've got Dan on Twitter. Feel free to throw a tweet over to Dan. If you've got me on socials, La Vida Liverpool Online Magazine, Justin Hopper, of course, myself, feel free to just, I'm getting quite good at this radio malarkey. I can actually check socials whilst I'm on air, would you believe?
Multitask.
I can multitask. So feel free to send us a message there, guys. So, Dan, the first thing to say, obviously, is thank you for coming on. Because I know it's public knowledge now, you've had a recent cancer diagnosis. I believe you've had chemo today, even before coming on. So that's
it was yesterday.
Yesterday, you had chemo.
Second bout.
But respect for you for coming on.
Yeah. I thought 2022 would be light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't realise it was a train coming in the opposite direction. About November, I had a big lump on the side of my neck, and I went in, and then fast forward a month or so, and you get all the in and out of various different scans and tubes and CAT scans, PET CT scans, and biopsies and all sorts of stuff. And then I got the diagnosis. So I've got Hodgkin lymphoma. It's stage 4, so it's quite serious, but I've got 12 bouts of chemo over 6 months. I've had 2, so I've got 10 left to go. And to be honest with you, I feel, I've had to go sort of like the best part of teetotal and, clean up my act a bit. So I actually feel okay, and the survival rates are I'll put it this way, I've had worse odds on, on a number of things. So exactly. Yeah. So I'm feeling positive. I'm up for it, and it's one of those things. It's a lot of people get cancer. It's a big percentage rate, so there's nothing, new about that. But actually, this was probably the last performance you'll see of me of hair, because I brushed it this morning and a big clump came out. So,
oh, no.
Straight after here, I'll be getting it shaved.
You be a skinhead like me then. We'll like twins,
I'm in good company.
Well, if anyone can get through this, it's you. You're a man of great calibre. I remember when I was going through some difficult times, and this is an important thing to mention before we start with your childhood and start talking about that. It's an important thing for me to say to people. Dan Davies is, a hell of a guy. He'll do anything for anyone. When I first started out with La Vida Liverpool Online Magazine, it was tough. I've been working my ass off for the last 4 years. Dan recognised the work I was doing. Like a lot of people locally, gave me some money just one day in an envelope, gave me £1,000 saying, I believe in you, lad, which was unbelievable. And then he brought a tear to my eye. And Dan also, when I was going through hard times, said to me, tough times don't last, tough people do. I'll always remember you said that to me, Dan, So yeah, if anyone can get through it, Dan Davies can, I'm sure. So let's talk about, obviously New Brighton is a massive part of this show, and what you've done here. Let's talk about your upbringing in New Brighton. Tell us about you growing up in New Brighton, your memories of the place, you know, how you perceive the place, because when you were growing up in New Brighton, it was in a state of decline, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 48, I'm 49 in April. So I grew up, 73 I was born. My mum and dad's family originally from Liverpool, and they'd moved over when they were kids. And their families had moved over, like, you know, a number of years before. So they brought me up around here. I lived in Liskeard to start with. I was born at Mill Lane Hospital, and then we moved to New Brighton when I was about 5. In fact, it was 79. I think we moved to New Brighton, and it was, as I say, the 80s was really what I remember. I mean, it was the winter of discontent when we moved to the house. Remember, there was no central heating or anything. It was fixed snow. But you know, New Brighton is a place that I've never really left. Although I worked in London for 20 odd years, I lived in New Brighton still, between New Brighton and Liverpool. Sorry, New Brighton and London. And my first jobs were around here, so I did a paper round, Mr. Carruthers paper shop with a three-legged sheepdog.
Come on, long way since then, haven't you?
Yeah, well, you know what? Like, when you reflect back at some of the things you've done, having a paper round was one of the most important jobs I had, because I delivered down, all around New Brighton, but I used to deliver particularly like Portland calls, and sometimes, and the Cliff was one of the main ones I did.
Oh, the block of flats, the Cliff?
Yeah, Wellington Road.
So you had to deliver newspapers to every flat in the Cliff?
I did one of the blocks. So. But at that time, I mean, especially now when you've got like fake news and you've got these sort of echo chambers of social media where you follow people you only agree with.
Not Liverpool, by the way.
No,
media, right?
Absolutely. A lot of the mainstream media now because everything is sound bites.
Yeah.
And it's why it's good to do it, a couple of hour long sort of chat, because you get into more detail. And
Absolutely.
when I delivered papers, the thing that really struck me was that I read them, and that means I read from left to right, from sort of red tops up to the broadsheets. And if you want more detail about a piece of news that's breaking, well, read from every angle. The truth's somewhere normally in the middle.
Okay.
And at the moment, when you're reducing everything to sound bites and 140 characters or whatever, you're not getting into any detail. So some of the most iconic pieces of news, and pictures and detailed description and analysis was actually in the newspapers. I'm not saying they were perfect then, because you had, you still had media moguls and things like that. But you at least got, a fairly wide variety, and it makes you think differently. It makes you, question things. And that's really been, that was a good setup for me, doing that for about 4 years.
So you learnt a lot from being a paper boy, because most people you see would be a paper boy, deliver the papers, and that's it. But this is a really interesting insight about how your mind works. You would not only deliver the papers.
Well, I remember one day, for example, delivering newspapers, and pretty much every front cover was the fact that like 1,400 people had died in an earthquake. Yeah. It was in Indonesia or somewhere. And apart from the one my dad read, the one my dad read had what the Queen was wearing, the entire front cover, and the next 5 days, 5 pages, and buried on like the 7th page as a fact, like a footnote that like 1,400 people had died. So that day I just took a copy of every single paper home and I spread them out, and my dad was having his breakfast. And I said, Dad, you get your news from this newspaper, which was the Daily Express, and the 9 o'clock news on the BBC. Yeah. I get my news from everywhere. And this is what it actually happened. Yeah. You won't find that in your newspaper. Yeah. And then he changed newspaper. He changed the Daily Mails, which gave up.
So that's interesting. It's a really interesting insight to see, how your mind worked from an early age, and your attitude and philosophy. I like the way that you take all angles. You don't take one thing as gospel truth. Very insightful. I mean, looking again, talking about your childhood here in New Brighton. What did you? Obviously, you did the paper round, but what were you like as a I say, a teen growing up, what were you into? What were your hobbies? And importantly, what were your thoughts about New Brighton? Were you like, oh, it's a bit run down, and
Well, part of me thought it's sad because I grew up in New Brighton, where we're in Vale Park, which is a beautiful place. At the moment, and some really good, people who help look after the whole area. You've got the Pirates. New Brighton Pirates,
legends.
Major and the gang.
Yes,
absolutely brilliant. We've got it's a beautifully curated sort of like park, just up the road from where we are. Growing up, my era missed a lot of what New Brighton was really, sort of founded to be about. So New Brighton really got formed in sort of 1830 when James Atherton, who was a merchant and an architect, it was based in Everton in Liverpool, and his view was 170 acres of sand dunes. That's where New Brighton used to be. And that those sand dunes were called Rockpoint, and that's why I called it Rockpoint Leisure.
I didn't know that. Not a lot of people do know.
He came over and he bought 170 acres of sand dunes from the local land owner, and he decided he wanted to go down to Brighton on the south coast and form a New Brighton up the north as a place of wonder and a playground for the people in Liverpool. And we had 2 piers, 11 theatres. We had the largest ballroom in Europe, and on top of it was situated the largest tower in the country, bigger than Blackpool Tower. We had the largest open-air swimming baths in the world, which is now built further on down the promenade, which was sort of like the local people's sort of like open-air baths.
Yeah.
We had chalets on the beach. And the ferry used to come and dock at New Brighton, so we had over 5 million day trippers a year coming from Liverpool.
That's a big number.
Yeah, but the point is, there was something for them to day trip here for. New Brighton is a peninsula, so on one side we've got the River Dee, we've got the top part, the Irish Sea, and then on the other side we've got the River Mersey, and obviously Liverpool city centre, the central business district, is there. Now, when you the basic point is you don't pass through New Brighton.
Well, it's the end of the train. It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Trains are Transcentral. KLF, love a good chat. You don't pass through New Brighton. You travel to New Brighton.
Yes.
And if you take all the reasons to travel to a place like New Brighton away, well, what is there to come? And any seaside town needs needs some visitors. We have 15,000 people who live here. Only down the road you've got like Liso, and that's got about 13,500 people. It's got under 50 jobs. It's got nowhere to socialise. And when you just put housing there and you don't work there, you don't socialise there, there's very, very limited things to do. That builds up a whole, load of problems downstream. And somewhere like New Brighton, already half of Victoria Road got all the shops that were derelict, and it was very, very run down.
Of course.
Here. They all got compulsory purchase, knocked down, and houses got built there. Now, I've got no doubt whatsoever that if in 2018 we started, leasing, renting, buying every boarded up place we could on the road, the fate of the rest of the road, especially now with COVID and things happening, it would have been compulsory purchased, and it would have been houses. And then you've got the biggest employer in New Brighton being Morrison's. It's not a compelling reason to visit a place unless there's some things to visit. And I'll come on to this in more detail, but street art and creating the biggest 3 open-air street art gallery was one of the anchor sort of points that we wanted to do. So there's actually a reason to come, and that itself is snaked around to a lot of different areas of New Brighton, trying to pick up, so all the little businesses can benefit from footfall. So that's one of our important sort of cornerstones. Having this clustering effect of independent businesses. the last thing I want on Victoria Road is any big brands.
Yeah, amazing.
I want, you know, local independent businesses and a reason for people to come down, something you can't just get online. So that's one of the sort of like founding sort of cornerstones we've got for this project.
It's amazing, and you know, you hear people talking all the time, you know, what a great job you've done transforming and, you know, reinvigorating the area.
You say to me, I mean, we've got a decent team here, and that, you know, I mean, a couple of them are sat with me in the room today. Well, you've been a big advocate of us. I've got Mark Cowley here, Spaces manager.
Hi, Mark.
And he's put Space for band on in UK Pink Floyd in the anti-supermarket.
Yeah.
And I've got Jamie who came down to do some
filming
work.
this.
You know, he's filming it now, so it'll be up on his
nice
channel.
one, Jamie, legend.
And Jamie just came down and was, you know, he's a local podcaster and things, and you know, he's been an absolute asset. He came out to Liverpool University with me today, so
awesome.
It's about clustering like-minded people around, giving them a platform.
So it is very much a team effort, and as I say, you've had some, you know, amazing people around you with this incredible project. Looking at your childhood again there, I mean, it's quite fitting when you're talking about the sort of like the way New Brighton sort of hit a bit of a decline. There was a local guy, wasn't there, who published a book actually called The Last Resort. Martin Parr. He published the book The Last Resort, which, you know, I think that was sort of early 80s, so you must...
Well, I mean, Martin did it, you know, and it was a load of images, and he got some flack for it because it was really like I mean, some people saw it as like the last nail in the coffin for New Brighton.
Yeah.
It was when it was on its way out, and you know, I remember like New Brighton Rock being on, and Frankie Goes to Hollywood played, Duran and Spandau.
Bring back those days.
We were too young to get in, so we sat with red noses and listened to it. It was live on Channel 4 Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday night.
Yeah.
And at the time, all the big popular artists were there, and you know, New Brighton Baths ended up going down in the early 90s. You had obviously in 2019, it was exactly 50 years since the ballroom burnt down. The tower came down 100 years before. You know, the 11 theatres were now shut, the Derby Pool was gone. So in the 80s, you know, it really was a sort of, you know, wipe your feet on the way out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people towards this, you know, by the time we were out of school, bearing in mind, you know, globalisation was really kicking off then. I think there was, you know, a lot of people, you know, around just thought we've got to get out of here. And because there wasn't the sort of opportunities. I'd started CPL training group when I was 18 in my mate's flat in New Brighton.
I can't believe you're 18. We'll come on to that after the next tune, but that huge company that you started.
Well, it wasn't when we started. It was literally like a Canon star writer. And
you started when you're 18. That's unbelievable.
You to the paper. This was before social media and before, like, you know, anything really.
Talk about young entrepreneur there. You know, that's next level, man.
I think generally I started because I was unemployable.
Brilliant.
Because my mouth.
Brilliant.
So we're gonna listen to a tune.
Yeah, shall we?
Yeah.
So guys, you listen to me, Justin Hopper, with my special guest Dan Davies here on La Vida Liverpool Live on the tropical banks of the Mersey in the thriving, buzzing and just incredible these days New Brighton seaside town. Talking there before this tune break, how Dan Davies and the Rockpoint Leisure team have come to completely regenerate the area and basically, you know, inject it full of new life and colour and vibrancy. We're talking about Dan's early, you know, sort of like his early days as a child here in New Brighton and how, you know, he was delivering newspapers and how, you know, you can see from an early age there the way Dan's mind works. We'll be after this tune talking about Dan's career and how he's got to where he is today, and then going into the nitty gritty about, you know, why he's embarked upon this incredible project here in New Brighton. So, yes, as I said before, we are allowing Dan to choose all the tunes this week. Such a nice guy. I don't normally do that, but legend that is Dan. So we had Frankie, and the next track from Dan is Handle With Care by the Travelling Wilburys. And he'll tell us after this tune why he's chose it. Thanks for listening, guys.
Glad I'm finally on.
Say hi to Dan and wish him all the best and hope all goes well with him, Lindsay and Angel. We've also had Jan message in. Jan said, good evening, Dan. Lovely to hear you on our station. So you're very well received. I did say to everyone there listening that, you know, feel free to message in newbrightonradio@gmail.com any questions for Dan there. Or if you want to troll me Pete Price style, you can email in and say some horrible things about my height and things like that. But obviously I won't repeat it on air. But we have had a lovely message on socials. Through Facebook, a friend of mine, Jack Cano, really nice guy, Jack, hell of a nice guy. He's done a bit of filmmaking and things like that himself. Tell Danny he's a legend living in Liscard and going there for the nightlife. It's a total farce. Thanks to Danny, me and my bro Sam love going to Vicky Road, hopping from one bar to the other. Breath of fresh air, peace brother, love Jack and Sam, Nick's nephews. So that was a lovely message in there. And that message I've had on socials, I can't repeat. But yeah, basically, guys, you know, feel free to message us. You know, send a tweet to Dan, or go on the Vida Liverpool, my personal socials, or email us at newbrightonradio@gmail.com. So you're speaking to me, Justin Hopper. We've got special guest Dan Davies. We've been talking about the New Brighton regeneration scheme, the project, the amazing things happened here to rejuvenate New Brighton over the last few years. And as we said, this show's being live streamed as well. So not only is it on air now and going on Mixcloud, the amazing Jamie is actually doing this as a live stream. So you'll be able to watch the visual version of this interview and this radio show. So if you want to check Jamie out, by the way, Jamie does a lot of interviews and podcasts. Hell of a great guy, very talented indeed. It's Jamie Lee Media on YouTube, and that's where you'll be able to find a visual recording of this as well. So back to Dan. As I said, I'm letting Dan choose all the tunes this week, which is a very, very rare thing for me to do. So why did you choose the last track there?
Well, I just spoke with Travelling Wilburys, a great collection of fantastic artists, you know, including Roy Orbison, Tom Petty, like George Harrison, you know, amongst others, and I just liked the idea that, you know, once they become very successful in their own right, that they collaborate like that. It's just a good little big tune. Yeah,
and you mentioned collaborations, and I suppose that's what life's all about. Because I like to say that, you know, an individual can do great things, but when we come together and work together and collaborate, we can do even greater things, right?
Well, that's it. If you get a load of like-minded people, give them a platform, and you know, that cluster effect, I think it really helps.
Indeed.
I'm a sort of like frustrated musician and artist and photographer, and so a lot of the stuff we'll be doing down here are things that I failed with. So I was in going back to the sort of like, you know, the start, I was in a band, and I think we had to change our name about 11 times, i.e. after every gig. But we played some of the places the Beatles played. We played Barnston Dale. I think my dad and Skinny Dave's dad had just got home after dropping us off there, and we got a phone call to say we'd been thrown off stage. We had to go get all the stuff back.
What did you do? Were you just bad, or did you do something out there?
The actual rest of the band were good. It was me who was bad. And that was I was the lead singer and had a guitar around my neck, which they generally unplugged. I think I was tone deaf as well, which didn't really help being lead singer. But it was one of those things, you know, you should look at yourself in the mirror and go, no, I'm just going to stop. So yeah, but we played there. We played the Riverside, which was in New Brighton Baths, out at the concert hall there. We did a gig there. I think the last gig we did was for the school. It must have been when I was 16. So and we did it. I actually convinced the vicar of St Luke's Church on Breck Road that we were a Christian band.
Are you joking?
And the entire school, we used to go to Hammersound on, funnily enough, the guy died from there, and I went in before he died, he was selling his stuff, and I said, you won't remember us, but every single Saturday we'd come in and pick up like a PA that would have done Wembley Stadium and do it. So I bought a load of the stuff, Hammersound sounds, signs and things, all in Rockpoint Records. So it was a time, you know, it was great. We used to practice by Captain's Pit in the church hall there. Yeah, that was another career that I put an end to because I just thought, no, you're not talented enough. Photography was another one. I worked at John Mills Photography in some holidays over when we were in Hope Street, our own dark room. I remember doing a dissertation on that. A picture can paint 1,000 words, and that's the same with songs. It's the same with music, with photography, with art. Quite often, just one image or one song with some lyrics they can make a huge difference, and you go back and look at them.
And yeah, you've, I'd say, which we're going to talk about, you've done a lot for local creatives here in New Brighton and given them a platform, which I'm looking forward to talking about, because there's, a great deal of creativity here in New Brighton. Some amazing people do amazing things, and that's, when we talk about collaborations, it's a beautiful thing. But I really enjoyed what you're saying about, obviously, you growing up and obviously setting up this what became a huge, massive company at the age of 18. Have you always been like an entrepreneur, would you say? And what was it like, being an 18-year-old, setting up this alcohol licensing company? What made you do it? Did you see a gap in the market? What were your thoughts at an early age?
Well, it was probably work. I've worked in the hospitality industry since I was 16. So, what is now Portofino restaurant?
Oh, the Funson you're playing?
Yeah. Well, that used to be called Coasters, and I was the licensee there at 18. So, in fact, when I was finishing my A-levels off, I was still there. I was working as glass collector at 16 until like 17 as assistant manager. I was manager at 18. I was licensee. I lived above the place. And then I had a brief fallout with the owner a few years later. I went to the Oak in Liskeard.
Oh, yeah.
And lived above there and managed that for about 6 months. And then I went back to Coasters when they asked me to go back there. And I carried on till I was 25. But we'd already started CPL. So I had a brief stint of working at NWS Bank in Chester.
Oh, yeah.
And mum and dad, of course, were absolutely made up. Me, instead of working and being licensed trade, putting a suit on and driving out to this bank, and I was selling corporate finance for things like Heidelberg printers and presses, and and CNC lathes.
I've done that, I was a finance broker for one point as well.
Yeah, well, after about 3 months of pulling up at this big palatial office, there's 3,000 people I think worked there. I remember one day just parked up in a car park, looking at the building, and thought, if I can't swear, can I?
Please no. It's my fourth show, Dan.
Yeah, if I don't turn the car around now and just drive off, I'm going to wake up and I'll be 40 and have 2.2 kids, and and so that was a sort of tipping moment. And I went back to the Oak full time, and obviously we were building CPL up at the time because we didn't take any money out of CPL for the first few years, so we were all operating. And really I got into CPL because of Coasters, because I was there as licensee, and it was a case of seeing that training was starting becoming more important, where you had to have
regulations and everything.
If you were licensed, a license holder, you had to be sort of trained. So the sort of training that was offered at the time was advertised it was advertised through, the sort of like trade press. But if you're not in the trade, you don't know what the trade press is. So even though I was in the trade, I didn't know what the trade, the general trade press was. Yeah. And we just came about with a different sort of style, vacant course, and we started off just training licensees who wanted to get into the pub trade. Yeah. And that built, we soon we had 4 training centres sort of in Newcastle, Bolton, Stafford and Reading. And as they were getting, filled up, we started in our, doing them in Birkenhead. And then we went to, over about a 4-year period, we ended up at 80 sort of training centres from Inverness and Dundee down to in Aberdeen, down to, Southampton and everywhere in between, dozens in London. And and when we sold CPL, we were delivering about just under 3 million courses a year in 28 countries, so including for the biggest brands in the world.
International, not just
international. Yeah, we went an office in Ankara in Turkey at one point. We had one in Limassol in Cyprus, St George's Square, and 250 staff who worked for us in Birkenhead, 25,000 square feet. I was on a lot of flights out in the Middle East, setting up a lot of our stuff there. We ran the points-based entry system for the Australian government for 7 years. So if you wanted to be a doctor, dentist or nurse and work in New Zealand, Australia or Singapore, and English was the second language, we ran the OET tests for them in places like Riyadh, in Oman, Jordan, Qatar, Bahrain, Libya, Lebanon, Syria, all over the Middle East, and we ran that.
So in a way, I suppose that you could see the way things were going. You saw sort of a bit of a gap in the market, and then sort of acted before things started happening and became the market leaders in what you did, and then ultimately went global.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, it just proves that you can, it actually helped, I think, to some extent that we hadn't had any formal business training, because we just looked at things from a different viewpoint.
Yeah.
And the problem is, when everyone goes down a fixed sort of MBA route or something, well, what happens, I haven't shied away if everyone's walking in one direction to walk in the opposite direction, if I think that's the right way to go.
Yeah.
Just because everyone agrees doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
And a classic example of that is if you look at New Brighton, because why do we get the choice of brands that we get put in New Brighton? Well, I know why, because we train for most of them.
Yeah.
And when you run a business for 30 years, which is what I did, you see cycles. And it's a bit like, starting this interview off with two tribes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, how did we get to a stage where there was so much hope and opportunity that we would finally put the Cold War behind us? And then we're just basically starting on a new one. People just don't learn. And the sort of people who send, troops to a front line are not the people who are going to be on the front line.
Indeed, yeah.
And seeing Boris Johnson get off the plane, with his green tie on, inside out on, it looked as if he'd slept in his suit, arriving in Ukraine, like really, that's going to send shivers down Putin's spine, isn't it? But, we are where we are.
Well, one thing you were saying there about your early career, which really struck a chord with me, and I
worked in Halfords and this guard as well.
Did you?
And I watched the cherry tree centre get built. And there's a case in point. You want to see why a local town centre gets destroyed.
Yeah.
It's dead easy. You let an anchor client like Marks and Spencer's leave, well then Littlewoods go, and the whole then list of places go, and you end up with nowhere. And there are places for brands and anchor clients, and if you're a local council, you can have a bloody space for nothing if you want. Just be an anchor client there, because that will automatically give other
the footfall.
And if we look at New Brighton, it was when I could eat healthier in Euston Station than I could anywhere in New Brighton. At one point, you start thinking, we've got a problem here, and my next door neighbour Roy, who's a pal of mine, I've told this story a few times, I don't want to annoy him, but when I bought the first building, which is now Oakland, we spent the first year just cleaning up the streets, clearing up fly tipping, engaging all the local kids, getting them to take ownership of the area they lived in.
Sure.
I looked at models from all around the world, the Broken Windows Theory in New York and everything, which I thought ended up a bit too much stick and not enough carrot. But the point is that why do we get the choices, or up until recently, there's been some good independents open down on the front now, like Flank, people like that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we got a whole host of mid-tier brands. Now, most of whom we train for as well, so I know the companies and the companies that own them intimately.
Yeah.
And my next door neighbour Roy came flying down and went, Dan, what the hell are you doing? You're going to lose every penny you've ever earned. Oh, yeah, why are you investing in New Brighton? So I said, well, because I live here. I love New Brighton. And I said, more to the point, why haven't you invested in it? And he went, well, we've looked at opening a revolution down here, but it just doesn't work. The demographic report doesn't stack up. And I went, well, one, that doesn't sound like a revolution.
Yeah.
And two, you didn't know what the hell a demographic report was in 1991, the same year I founded CPL.
Yeah. You
founded Revolution Vodka Bars.
Yeah.
We went to trading in 30 countries. You ended up being a FTSE listed company, £100 million company.
Yeah.
I said, are we talking about the same demographic report that gives us a Hungry Horse, not a Miller and Carter?
Yeah.
A Burger King, not a Nando's?
Yeah.
A Travelodge, not a Hilton? A Morrison's, not a Waitrose? And it is simply somebody sat in a chair in Canary Wharf or New York going, right, we need to roll out 300 Bella Italias. Here we've got 15,000 people, blue collar. Yeah, that's ideal for it. And I think we're wrong. Not everyone wants one of these brands, and actually you can see that because most of them have gone bust since then. Have left, and thankfully we're starting getting some decent independent ones in.
Yeah,
brilliant. But even like, you know, I had a space for Nisha Katona from Mowgli, you know, Liverpool barrister, very successful. I rang her up and said, hi Nisha, I've spoken on conferences with her and said, got an ideal spot for you, do you fancy opening a Mowgli here? And it was like a knee-jerk reaction. She didn't even know it was coming out of her mouth. Good God, no, Dad, I wouldn't open anywhere in New Brighton. Then she backtracked a bit and said, over wirral.
So there's still a stigma?
Well, yeah, because, and then she said, we're interested in university cities, red brick university cities, that's our expansion. Now, that isn't an entrepreneur talking, that is a private equity crib sheet that she's reading from. So I went, all right, fine.
Yeah.
And actually we've got a couple of big announcements. I can't announce them just yet because it needs to be signed off, of a couple of really up and coming restaurants in Liverpool who we've secured sites for as well. Nice.
Well, one thing you said just a little bit earlier there, and I can picture the image. It's something I can really relate to actually. I can picture you, the image of you, you know, turning up to work at this grand palatial corporate building, you know, working for the corporate machine, and then looking at it and just driving off and setting up on your own. It's something I did. I was working in sales, as I said before, like you, as a finance broker at one point, always in the corporate world. And then my father passed away in March 2018. 6 weeks later, that's the thing that sort of gave me the oomph actually. It made me think, you live once, you've got to follow your calling. And I took the leap of faith. I handed in my notice. And then set up La Vida Liverpool online magazine. The rest is history. And I've taken, you know, a lot of inspiration, a lot of guidance, a lot of mentoring from you, Dan. Actually, I remember in the early days with La Vida, as I mentioned before, you know, it's been a real struggle the last 4 years trying to build up to where I am now, and I'm still building. I'm still doing my best. But you know, it's people like yourself I look up to who've been there and done that. And like you said, tough times don't last. Tough people do. But to anyone out there, keep
telling myself.
Keep chanting that mantra, Dan. But you know, what would you say to, you know, any advice to other people out there who are thinking of setting up their own business? Obviously, you did it very early. You know,
I'll tell you, look, you know, if you get paid for something you enjoy doing, and if it's not like, you know, work, it's a passion, I think that really helps. And also, you know, get as much advice as you can, but also there's a certain time where you just got to say, I've just got to start, I've just got to do it. And you'll learn some mistakes along the way. But speak to people who've been down the path before, because if you can not go down a few blind alleys and you know, find out it's a dead end at the end of it, it helps. You know, but also as well, having that, you know, since lockdown, a lot of people have tried out, you know, little businesses at home and things like that. And if you can have like the sort of clustering effect of like-minded people there, share some office space or share, you know, space, all of these things are, you know, these are all conducive to actually making a success of it.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, yeah, it's time flies on these radio shows. Time flies. So we're nearly coming up to another tune, of course, another one of Dan's choices, and then some news. And weather, and then another tune. Before we go into that, as I always say, you know, open up, you know, for people messaging in. Obviously, Dan's got, you know, a wealth of experience in the things he's done in his career, and of course, you know, this amazing regeneration project here in Victoria Road in New Brighton. You know, there's so much to talk about with that. So if anyone's got any questions related to any of that, really, if you want to pick Dan's brains about anything, feel free to email in. It's newbrightonradio@gmail.com. We have had a message from lovely lady I know, Susan Gallagher. Susan's incredible, actually. She's done a lot of work with Africa Oye. She's done a lot of projects, you know, getting people in the third world countries to actually make you know, handmade products. I mean, that's a great business in itself, giving them the power and actually promoting the tribal women make handmade and the
main thing is keeping it away from some of the big platforms where they ultimately just get ripped off. You know, if you can have that sort of that link, So they get the proper money that they deserve, they deserve for it, as opposed to some middleman, hawking it round, and they get pence.
That's what it's about. I think it's about taking the power back, isn't it? And it's a bit like, publishing companies and and in the music world as well, you get a lot of sort of people who are middlemen. Publishers are terrible, and Amazon now, I think an author gets maybe 50p a book. So this is what it's about. It's about doing things ethically. And Susan's one of those people. I think she's a bit of a pioneer and a world changer like us, Dan.
Right.
She said, "Hi, Justin and Dan. Great to hear about the history of New Brighton. I look forward to hearing the rest of Dan's story. Love the transformation of New Brighton." From Susie. Some more lovely words coming in there. I'm going to check socials after the break. You listen to me, Justin Hopper, on probably, I'd probably say the best radio show in the world. La Vida Liverpool Live on New Brighton Radio. The very sexy, handsome, intelligent and slightly deluded Justin Hopper on La Vida Liverpool Live. With Dan Davies in conversation this week. Boss tunes, boss conversation. Just before we play the next tune of the news, we've got Bohemian Like You by the Dandy Warhols, Dan. That's a proper driving song, isn't it? Why we chose that?
Because we're bohemian down here.
Yes, we are. We're very bohemian and we love it. So thanks for listening, guys. We're going to play that now. Bit of news. And then we're going to have the weather. And then in the second half of the show, we're going to be talking in a bit more detail, about the New Brighton project, about all the great things on offer here in New Brighton. Thanks for listening. And next tune, a bit of news and weather, another tune, and we'll speak to you soon. Boulevard of Broken Dreams by Green Day, one of my favourite teenage bands I used to listen to as a little teenage rebel with angst. That was one of Dan Davies' choices. Dan Davies is our very special guest this week on the fantastic, fabulous La Vida Liverpool Live, a brand new radio show here on New Brighton Radio from the tropical banks of the Mersey. So we've been in conversation for the past hour with the legend that is Dan Davies, the man behind the huge regeneration project, the revitalisation, the rejuvenation of this beautiful little seaside town of ours. We've been talking about Dan's early life in New Brighton and the inspiring story of his early days as an 18-year-old entrepreneur, and how he set up CPL, a huge global company. In the second part of the show, we'll be talking in a lot more detail about this incredible project here in New Brighton, the Rockpoint Leisure Regeneration Project. Before we do, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for listening. We've had a lot of love flooding in on social media, which I encourage you all to do. If you've got any questions for Dan, it's newbrightonradio@gmail.com. We've got on social media here a few lovely little messages. Sue Short's messaged in. Paddy Haig said, please make it shareable. He wants to share it with the world. Thanks, Paddy, you legend.
Paddy. Paddy's in his paddy wagon.
His paddy wagon.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
Paddy's a great guy. He's been working in the States for ages. And he rocked up again in New Brighton. He's from New Brighton originally. So he remembers, a little bit older than me, but he remembers all the times where New Brighton was just written off, and I'm a bit of a journey, but a lot of people are sort of like vintage, remember that we were sort of at the end of the glory days, and when it was just ravaged with heroin and problems and things like that. So the only way is up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I say, there's lots of people in New Brighton, people like Paddy, boss guys, who remember, the old days of New Brighton, as we talked about before, the real decline, and I'm sure people like that, have seen the full circle, and in fact, even much older local residents who've seen it booming in the 70s. The 50s.
Well, the amount of support we've had, I mean, every day, the one thing I was really keen not to be was a remote sort of developer. People would say, oh, no, you're a developer. I'm not. I've never developed anything like this before. I mean, I've run businesses, but we're not like remote in any way. I live 2 minutes up the road. I actually moved above the pub for 4 months because I wanted to see exactly what it was like living on the strip, if you like.
Yeah.
Because I want to be, we want to be a good neighbour to everyone. We don't want to cause any problems. And also, it's not just about hospitality and drinking. That's why we've opened, a whole host of things that have got nothing really to do with alcohol.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. I just want to make a quick shout out. We've got two of the founders of the new Brighton Radio station, and it's a fantastic setup they've got here in Vale Park. It's a beautiful, park, and it's a really, really cool setup. But I want to shout out to Lynn and Liam. I met them a few years ago in the pub when we were talking about, the whole radio station. And I said, I'm only going to back it if it's a pirate one.
There's no pirates. There's no pirates.
No, but you know what? Actually,
you're like a rebel with you.
Yeah. Rebel with a cause. But we've got they've popped in, so we've got a few people popping in and seeing how it's going. We've got Mark, a Spaces manager as well, he's here, and Jamie's here.
It's like a who's who of New Brighton in this studio right now, isn't it? Local celebs here.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great hub. And I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get on, but it's great to go on your show, Justin, because we go back a bit.
Well, we're honoured, and as I say, you've inspired me a lot, Dan, and you've looked after me and really believed in me from the early days of La Vida Liverpool. So it's quite fitting that you should come on my show here. Yeah. And I was just talking during the music break there and the news break that isn't it great when people collaborate? You've got New Brighton Radio doing great things, this amazing community radio station, the beautiful Vale Park. You've got Dan Davies, who's transformed the local area, and you've got me with La Vida Liverpool, little me, trying to make the world a better place with positive media, trying to fight the big boys of the mainstream media. So we're all in it together, aren't we, to make the world a better place. So we've had some lovely messages coming in. We've got a guy from Ireland, it's from Belfast actually. Top show, Justin lad. His name's also Justin. All Justins are cool, I like to think. Most of us anyway. We've got Sam Dobson.
Apart from Justin Trudeau.
Apart from Justin Trudeau.
Don't say anything. I can hear the load of expletives.
I can hear the truckers honking now. To that Dan. Sam Dobson, a lovely local girl. Her partner, her and her partner Joe Forrest, very good friends of mine. Sam said, "I'm listening, loving the show."
Joe Forrest, local artist. He's got an art studio with Rockpoint Records.
Indeed,
if it's the same Joe, yeah.
Indeed, that's Joe. So,
along with Brez and Johnny Benson, 3 local artists who have collaborated with some of the biggest street artists there is, and they've got 3 they've got art studios above Rockpoint Records on the 4th floor.
Indeed, incredible local artists, and as I was saying before, Dan's given a platform to so many local creatives, and I think has really brought a lot of creatives together. I met Joe actually. I had an office, didn't I, above Oakland, and I was walking down, I'd given myself a very rare break, and I saw Joe. I said, "What do you do, mate?" He goes, "Oh, I'm an artist. I saw some of his work. It's incredible." So yeah, Joe's partner, Sam, I'm listening, loving the show, and Danny has great music taste. Well, people don't say that about me. Enjoying the show and the regeneration of New Brighton, it's great. Festival was amazing, she's just commented. Festival was something put on recently by Revo Zaganda at the Hope Anti-Supermarket, amazing venue on Victoria Road.
That was a really good night, yeah. It started early, and Revo got a load of local bands, including our very own Razzmatazz.
Yes,
with Will and the boys, Jamie, Ben and Milo. And those are the same lads who painted the supermarket black for us in 6 days when we got the keys to have a look around. They ended up painting the whole thing black on the basis that we didn't think any supermarket would want to go in there again when we'd finished with it. Tom Blackford, the artist, did the big Mickey Mouse on the side and collaborated with us.
Nice.
And that is a case in point. The supermarket we took over had been a purpose-built quick save. It was funny because somebody came in and said, "Oh, you do realise that you're painting that black and it's historic?" And I said, "Listen, it's not engineering brick, right? It's not like listed. It's a purpose-built quickie, right? It was quick save, which failed. Then it was Summerfield, which failed. Then it was Co-op, which failed, and then it was Budgeons, which failed. And then we had 6 years of it derelict, just being like an area for fly tipping, antisocial behaviour, mattresses parked, dumped there." it backs onto the New Brighton Community Centre, which at the time looked like a Northern Ireland police station before the Good Friday Agreement.
What an analogy!
Welcoming. Had a sofa with a tree growing outside it for about 2 years. We just took over it and we've created this amazing space. And we've got Mark here from the manager of Space, and Space are a band, a Liverpool band. I absolutely loved some of their, stuff. And when he came in and said, actually, is it all right if Space shoots a music video here? I was like, yes, for the latest album.
Nice.
Yeah, so they shot the video for Hell No, which is off the latest album. We've sold 5 million records. We're still, wide. We're going to listen to one of their tracks in a minute.
We are indeed.
Called Neighbourhood.
So
a big shout out to Tommy and Franny and the lads, who then not only did the music video in the Hope supermarket, the anti-super supermarket, but they also did a gig there for us, and we had like 500 people there. And it was just an amazing night, really, really good night. I think they enjoyed themselves, and certainly, the people of New Brighton are just happy to have a venue where people can come along. And the Revo gig as well, he's booked a number of others, so I think March is the next one, and that's showcased all the local bands, back to back. So really, really good performance space, as well as being very purposed in that we've got food offers which are coming more and more coming online in the car park. We've got our own brewery moving in. It's run by Big Bang Brewery. They've got a gin distillery downstairs in Rockpoint Records, and they've got all their brewing equipment and everything in the top part of the supermarket. There's going to be a tap room opening soon as well up there. So all local, all brewed in New Brighton. And we want to collaborate with people like, local brewers, distillers. We've got some space down here, and anyone who's local, anyone who's fired up to start a business, the main sort of point that I want to keep out is all the big brands.
Yeah.
I keep all the big brands, all the big chains out, and we don't want to gentrify the place too much, and people from here can't afford to buy a place here.
Yeah.
What we want to do is have a hub, a creative hub here. The people who, and the fact that Liverpool University have taken this up as, as an architectural project.
Nice.
We want to have artists, musicians, of all description, people in IT, animators. If you want some space down here, we will find you. We will find you an area here to do it, and I think if you can have that clustering effect where people are bouncing off each other, we want it to be inclusive.
Yeah.
In the 80s, there was swastikas drawn on some of the walls down here. There was a very, very different sort of like feel. Yeah. Although it's always had a real strong community spirit, that got kicked out of it by governments who didn't care less. And in often the cases, councils that didn't have the ability to more vision to try and change the place.
Well, from my personal experience, when I was younger, I lived in West Kirby, and I didn't really go to New Brighton much.
Ghetto.
I know, I was very posh, darling. I'm going to get
all the money. But this way, you'll never see like a kids' play area that's got bulldozed up the road here without any consultation with any of the neighbours.
Yeah.
Because they were that short on houses.
Yeah.
Now, find a place in Gayton, Heswell, West Kirby where they'd just go and bulldoze some kids' play area and put houses up. It just would never happen.
Yeah.
And that's the travesty that happens down here. Places like New Brighton get written off.
Yeah.
It's horrific decision making, and when I say they literally couldn't run a bath, some of the people in power, well, they literally couldn't run two of them.
Well, as I say, we're very grateful for
one of them being the biggest one in the world.
We're very grateful for forward thinkers and trailblazers and trendsetters like you who want to really shake things up. From that personal perspective I had, when I was younger in West Kirby, I wouldn't really come over to New Brighton. In fact, as growing up as a teenager, it was too scary for a little West Kirby boy like me. But it had that edgy, like if you go to New Brighton for a night out, you might get done in, that was the stigma.
You might have done.
I talked my way out of it, Dan, that.
The thing is, the supermarket, what's beautiful about the supermarket, I think, we've got a few people comment, it's like going to somewhere illegal. When you go in there, because it just feels, it has this sort of vibe. It just feels, it just feels as though you know, at the end of the day, it's an old supermarket. We've still got all the old tills in and things like that. And,
Yeah.
and we want to keep that feel. I mean, in there, for example, we've got, you know, every single thing. We haven't had the benefits, but actually it makes you think on a different level. Because we've had not one penny of funding. The whole lot has been funded by, you know, friends, family, you know, people from New Brighton. What it shows is that, you know, you can do a lot with, you know, a relatively, it's a lot of money, but a relatively small amount of money. So the supermarket, you know, the bar was built completely out of all the old shelving units and everything. The places where we get, you know, where all the spirits are, or where cards used to, you know, card holders are. We made all the outside sort of eateries out of pallets. Yeah. And it was all local, you know, we put a shout out, people came down, so they've got some old paint in the garage here with sandpaper, and we had a real sort of like community spirit, people helping us, and every day, you know, it keeps you going, you know, it keeps you going down here, just speaking to the, you know, the people who live here and can see a positive change.
Well, I remember when I moved to New Brighton, I lived in Tollemache Street initially, been in New Brighton a fair while now.
Well, Tollemache Street is next to the Chelsea. Chelsea
yes,
bought
famous
69, and I think they paid 21 grand for it, which included 6 houses up the side of Tollemache Street.
Yeah.
And it was the first disco pub north of there, and it was based on one of the King's Road in Chelsea.
I mean, what I found when I moved to New Brighton, there's a great community spirit, but you know, obviously Vicky Road, you know, before the project. You know, I used to walk down Vicky Road in the winter. It was a bit like a ghost town, and it was dilapidated. Some great little independence going on. Don't get me wrong.
Well, the Bow-legged beetle and places like that really helped me. You know, because I've looked at that and I started speaking to people in there, and they said, you know, I said, where are you from? I said, I'm from New Brighton. I thought, I've never seen you here before. And they said, well, there's never been anywhere to go. And when you look at it like that, you think, how many, and the gigs and things we've had on in the supermarket and comedy nights, the amount of people who've fed back saying it's great having something walking distance from us as well. Yeah. And also we had about 150 people come out from Liverpool as well to the gigs. So it is a two-way street, you know, having some things on the doorstep. And the biggest thing is having it inclusive. Yeah. You know, because I was fortunate to travel around the world and also to live and work in different places where, you know, you just see a completely different sort of like, you know, atmosphere, because you've got people from, you know, all walks of life, and you know, one of the second or third murals we did was the Martin Luther King one, and that was on Hope Street, and the amount of people who walked up that road every day to go to work, and it was this sort of like rancid sort of the back of the Per Drop pub. And we sanded it all down, and we painted an image of Martin Luther King with U2's lyrics and Pride in the Name of Love. Early morning, April 4, shot rings out in a Memphis sky, free at last, they took your life, but we could never take your pride. Yes. And we draped sort of Union Jack with the colours of every flag bled sort of down them. And that was because it was meant to be the week Brexit happened. Yeah. But that image itself is, you know, when you turn the corner and see that image, you know, it's a really powerful image. Indeed. And you know what, you know, it's a big thing. We actually projected the I Have a Dream speech with audio onto a building. Didn't tell anyone, and we just had, you know, a few hundred people just stop and listen, and a lot of people said it's the first time I've listened to that speech, you know, I feel embarrassed, and we went home and listened to it again. And again, we need to learn from the past if we're going to, you know, sort things out moving forward. Indeed, and I think there's lots of magic, you know, regarding the regeneration project. Of course, it's regenerated the area, it's brought a lot of business to the area, and lots of eyes have been on the area, and people come to see the street art, which has all been fantastic. But I think the real magic there as well is that, as we were saying before, you know, there's always, when I moved to New Brighton, I got there was a great community spirit, but I think it's really, you know, galvanised that. You know, a lot of the projects you've been getting local people and collaborations in the community. So I think there's that real goal going on as well, right? Well, you know, everyone in this room now, I hadn't met 5 years ago. Yeah. You know, and I think that, you know, because I never, you know, because I was working in London a lot, I'm just sleeping here, just coming back, you know, 3 or 4 nights a week, and and staying here, you lose contact, and you know, actually seeing a lot of people who I went to school with and things like that, and they're all grown up now, kids and everything, and some of them work for me in the places, but it's good. And there's always been a real strong community spirit that, you know, as I say, has had the life kicked out of it. But I think now there is a vibrancy, and people think, well, actually, this isn't just a narcissist impression that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
That we used to read on a regular basis. This is something which is happening, and COVID has knocked us sideways because we haven't had one trading year. The pub, which we took over, and in a collaboration with Punch Taverns, we spent like 750 grand on it, getting it to open, and that you know, that has, you know, but that's been, you know, that's in the hub of the sort of area. BB over the road, which is you know, some ideas I took from California. Rockpoint Records is a complete eclectic mix of 10 businesses, you know, 2 tattoo parlours, a barber's shop, a gin distillery, a vinyl record store, 3 art studios. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out what Mark's saying. What?
Photo booth.
Oh yes, everything in there.
I thought you wanted the photo of us, Mark. Sorry.
Photo, and we've got, you know, everything there. It's got Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. It's got
his guitar.
Stars and Stripes, guitar.
I didn't realise that was his guitar on Rockpoint Records. That's incredible.
Yeah, I bought it from a guy who made it for him in the States.
Amazing. There's so much going on here in New Brighton, and I think
also we've had a load of music videos done. Space have done theirs, but we've had the Bo Weasels. They've done one of their tunes down there and videoed it all in Rockpoint Records in Oakland. We've had the Mysterines,
local legends, aren't they? Great, aren't they?
They've just done a music video in the supermarket. We've got someone in today as well. It's some of the Corals team in there today. Chelsea Grimes, who's you know, she's really smashing it at the moment. With you know, she's a football player. She's got loads of different strings to her bow, model, everything. She's been down doing some stuff in there as well. So it is becoming a bit of a hub for people to come in.
And it's great to see. So I think it's safe to say New Brighton is firmly back on the map. I think talking about the community and talking about the community spirit and everything and the area, I think it's very appropriate to take us to our next song, which is by Space, of course. Space's manager Mark's with us in the studio today. And what other tune? The Neighbourhood, right?
Absolutely.
Enjoy, guys.
Tune.
We'll be back for some more thought-provoking conversation after this. What a tune, Space, Neighbourhood. Speaking to Mark before, Space's manager, about my early memories of Space. I think I was about 10 years old, and I saw him on a Saturday morning, one of those Saturday morning shows anyway, and I thought, who are these guys? They're so cool.
Probably been out from Friday night.
I mean, to have Space play in New Brighton, I think it's a big sign of where New Brighton's come.
Absolutely, and I managed to get into the mosh pit as well, just for that song.
So we've been talking here to Dan Davies about, you know, his career, his early life, his career, you know, everything he's done so far, leading up to this huge project he's taken on in New Brighton, restoring it to its former glory, and just bringing everyone together in the community. Obviously, street art's a massive part of that, of course. Everyone talks about the street art here. There's some incredible pieces of work. What was your thinking behind that? And I'd like to ask you, if you could be biased, what's your favourite piece out of them all?
I'll come back to that in a sec. I mean, the point of street art is, I mean, when I was in Brooklyn, I was looking at sort of some regeneration work we've been doing there. I was at a conference in New York on my 45th birthday, and I thought I'll stay there a bit longer because I knew I was going to embark on this project. And also I've been asked in the capacity as chairman of IOL to do a select committee, House of Lords select committee into the future of seaside towns. That was a 2-year, from 2017 to 19, the start of 19. look cross-party, so all different parties just saying, well, what are we going to do about seaside towns? There's a big problem with them. Most seaside towns have 180 degree land and 180 degree water. So there's an immediate disadvantage in the sense that if you put a pin in the centre of a seaside town, draw a 5-mile radius, hardly to see. Now, what I took from Brooklyn was, I thought, well, hang on a second, Brooklyn, I asked some of the people, why aren't you based in Manhattan? And they said, well, Central Business District of Manhattan is outrageous prices. And what I saw was a load of buildings getting repurposed, street art going up, little markets, and mainly it was independent. There was no big business. Well, not much of it were in the district I was in. And that really added as well to my sort of thinking. So when I came back and I was looking at it, I thought, you know what, New Brighton has got 360.
Yeah.
We're Brooklyn to Manhattan as far as, you know, we've got the fantastic city of Liverpool on our doorstep. And okay, we don't have ferries across the Mersey, but one of my next plans is I've been in talks with Uber to talk about a potential land train or monorail from Woodside to Seacombe Ferry to New Brighton. I've also said we need river taxis going over. They've done them in the Thames, yeah. So we get river taxis from the bottom of New Brighton over to Liverpool city centre. Well, that's a great way of transporting people backwards and forwards, and it really opens it up because I think New Brighton, and we're about to produce our master plan for the area, which has cost the council nothing, and is more detailed than any other plan I've ever seen. And that has things like, you know, wayfinding. If you've got a couple of hours to kill and you want to come out to New Brighton, well, what's apparent is there's becoming a number of different districts and neighbourhoods of New Brighton. Yeah. And street art allows us to introduce people to them by, you know, you can do a street art tour. And my idea for street art was to get local artists, the kids who have helped clean the area up and sand benches down and paint lampposts and sand walls down, to help prepare the walls. Get them to work with some local artists who then get the opportunity to work with some national and international artists. And the beauty of that, I mean, somebody rang up and said, you should only use local artists. And I said, well, let's test that theory. Imagine if Glastonbury said they were only going to use bands from Somerset. I don't think it'd be called Glastonbury. So actually having the opportunity, and Brez and Johnny and people like that, a lot of the local artists have ended up working with some of the biggest artists in the world, like Ben I and Dot Master. Brilliant. You know, we've had them from all over the place. So Aches came in from Dublin. We've had Smug One come in from Australia. We've had them from Germany, from France, Rome. You know, as well as, you know, a really good array of national, international and local artists. We've got a show coming up in Oakland on the 4th of March, and that is an all-female show. So we've got about 16 local, national and international female artists, and that's a 2-month show. And also on the 8th, it is International Women's Day as well, so there'll be a big event there around that.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it's the art, I think, helps. One, it's a talking point. Two, it brings buildings that you would ordinarily walk past. You know, it brings them to life. Yeah. And there's something for everyone in the street art because there's lots of different styles. What you've got to remember is as well, these are, you know, put together as a big team. We put them together. Rob heads it up, who's been brilliant. Mm-hmm. And Rob Jones, he worked in London with some of the in the big studios for a good 15 years. Mm-hmm. And he's brought up, you know, he's from here, he's from New Brighton. And he's brought a wealth of knowledge. You've got a silkscreen printing company set up here. Traditional silkscreen printer. My dad was a silkscreen printer. When I grew up, he was a silkscreen printer. Yeah, so it's good bringing all this back to the, you know, to the community. You know,
it's amazing how much local talent there is, and I think your project has really opened that up.
And Luca's another one. Luca's joined us. Yeah, Luca's a fantastic artist. He's freestyling at the moment in Rockpoint Records, doing a load of stuff. Yeah. And he's just got a little studio down here as well now. So we've got more and more people coming in saying we want studio space, we want, you know, rehearsal space. Awesome. We want some space for our IT, you know, company, things like that. And that's what we want to do, to have this creative sort of hub where people can bounce off each other.
Yeah, and you know, it's one thing, as I say, I think it's really highlighted the regeneration project is how much talent there is in New Brighton. I remember, I think about a year ago or so, I was just sat in one of the pubs there. It was the JA.
Somebody else as well needs to shout out Mark Wardle. Mark Wardle's got a studio down in Shoreditch, and I've got a couple of pieces up at my house and one in our office of Boy George that he painted. Absolutely superb artist. And his grandmother, his family are still all from here, from New Brighton. His grandmother used to work in the Tower. She was part of the Save the Ballroom sort of campaign and things like that. So Mark's due up in the next few weeks. So big shout out to him. If you haven't seen his work, it's absolutely amazing.
Amazing. And yeah, I was saying there, I was on Victoria Road there, a little time back, having a pint, and I was just talking about what I do. I was on my laptop, as everyone sees me in Victoria Road. I've worked all day and I'm still in the pub on Victoria Road on my laptop. And I was just talking about what I was doing. I was just going on about YouTube and algorithms and things like that. And this guy started chatting to me, a local to New Brighton, and he was chatting to me in Victoria Road over a pint. It turns out his name's Matthew Lambert. It turns out he's a film, a camera guy and director actually for BMX and Red Bull globally. And I was just chatting to this guy. He was showing me he's got 20 million views, 20 odd million views on YouTube. I'm like, wow, and it never ceases to amaze me. The place is oozing with talent, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about the project here. It's created lots of friendships and creatives who've come together and collaborated.
Well, another thing I've missed out, actually, which is really important, is the film industry, because New Brighton has been used in a number of films, and we've got a big one which is about to come out. It's done by some local guys, Maddersbird's film production, Kel and the lads from there, and we had the whole of Victoria Road closed off last year, and we had Rebel Wilson, Charlotte Gainsborough, and all-star cast filming it. It'll be coming out in the next couple of months. It's well worth a watch, and that was filmed as New Brighton. It wasn't masquerading as another place or anything. It was as New Brighton. So that should be coming out. It's one to keep an eye out for. It's Rebel Wilson. She's in a serious acting role here. Some of the stuff she's done was more like the comedy side of things. So that was amazing, the fact they picked New Brighton as a destination. A load of our team members were all extras in the film, and again, it shows a real vibrancy of the place when you get all the cameras everywhere, and the whole road's closed off and filming, and they got ready above the pub. So we just opened up all our sites to do that, and we'll be as accommodating as possible for anything like that. If you pick New Brighton as a venue, well, we'll help host you.
Well, Dan, next time, there's a big movie getting filmed in Victoria Road there in New Brighton. Don't forget to give me a shout if they need a Bruce Willis, a very smaller Bruce Willis stunt double.
Mini me.
But yeah, maybe not quite mini me, Dan. I'm on air. This is my show. Come on, you're embarrassing me now, mate. Maybe Bruce Willis has had a height reduction thing, or something crazy and weird's gone on in some psychological thriller. You know where to turn, right? Nice one. Well, talking about the local community, we've had a couple of lovely little messages of love and messages, gorgeous messages coming through on air. We've had throughout the last couple of hours on this show. We've had a lot of people, messaging in through emails, through social media. Really inspired by everything that Rockpoint's doing. Mike Dudley's emailed in. Mike's the guy behind the Wirral Kayak Challenge, if you're aware of it.
Brilliant.
They basically every year, I think Mike's raised over 50 or 70k for charities over the last 7 years by kayaking from the Derby pool all the way around the coast. Does that every year. It's brilliant. He said, "Hi Justin, loving the interview with Dan. Fantastic vision for New Brighton and an inspiration to us all." So that's really nice to hear. And the local legends text us. Ned, everyone knows Ned, the saxophone player, right?
Oh, Ned, yeah, Ned Kelly.
Ned Kelly, absolute legend. Ned's like me, actually.
The Pink Panther.
Yeah, he's a legend. Ned's been in a lot of the local bars there and whatnot in New Brighton, and he's come up with
a big Fall fan, but Fall.
Yeah,
massively into him. You always see Ned in his Dennis the Menace jumper.
Yes.
And if you bump into him, ask him to tell you the parrot joke.
The parrot joke. Is it fit for air or?
Probably not. No, he's probably been a face-to-face from it. No, Ned's a legend.
He is, and he's a message. He actually Ned.
Street busker, and I think good guy.
He is. I'm hoping to have Ned on a show one day because he's got some stories, And I've always said that New Brighton's full of character, but it's full of characters as well, isn't it? There's when you start chatting to people in the community, it's amazing the things that the stories that people have,
You know what? The thing about a lot of seaside towns is you get people who pass through them and they never leave. So you've got sort of like accents all around the country. From Cockney accents. We've got Cockney Dave. We've got Cockney Simon. We've got a number of jocks who come down here, and you get you just get this like eclectic mix, a bohemian mix of people who are like washed up on the shores of New Brighton and never leave. So yeah, it's good. It's good. I like having that diversity. You walk down the street and just have that, hello mate, how are you? And yeah, just this eclectic mix of people, and I think that's what should be celebrated about any town. One thing that I did a Radio 4 interview which went quite big on New Year's Eve, I think it was 2019, and I got messages from all around the world, but I got a lot of messages. Blackpool Council's chief exec came down with some of their team and we were looking through their plan. I love Wavertree, who were doing a fantastic job in Wavertree, because that got voted one of the worst places to live. And I've actually lived in Wavertree for a bit. A girl I was going out with years ago, and who wants to be signposted as one of the worst places to live? And a load of local businesses got together and went, sod this, we're not going to be called the worst place to live. And they started Love Wavertree, which is really booming, and a lot of the work that's getting done in different parts of town. One of the most things that stuck in my mind the most was people from Huddersfield came over ahead of the bid, and they did a public survey of what you wanted. And the biggest thing that came back from the residents of Huddersfield was, we want to be proud of where we live. Yeah. And who wouldn't want to be? Yeah. If you haven't got a big Premier football team, if you haven't got, if you're not a big city or anything, who wouldn't want to be proud of where they live? Indeed. And actually, the sort of history and heritage we've got here, don't let it get trampled on. Make sure that we do celebrate, you can't just live in the past. But we've got to learn from the past, and we've got to say, not everyone wants a kiss me quick hat and rock and things become down here, but what we've got to do is look at the future, and I think that the future you've got the new generation of people as well, having this sort of clustering of creative and new start businesses, and mostly just keeping it independent. If we keep it independent, we're in charge of our own destiny. As soon as you sell out to all the big corporates, they don't give a toss about where they're from, about places. And you'd be amazed that most of the time, they've never even, and they never will, set foot in the places that they open. In places like this, they go to a few flagship ones around the country, and otherwise it's a line on a spreadsheet. You've got somebody sat in an office dictating of what people get in a place like New Brighton, who couldn't even put a pin on the map where it is. Yeah, indeed, here. And I think it's when people like us come together. It's power in numbers, isn't it? We all there's more of us than there is of them. Yes, indeed, Dan. Indeed. About where they're from, and they care of the fact they didn't like it getting slagged off by some. By a lot of people who are, in London, and it's very easy to open a place in certain parts of London with footfall and things like that, and you've got to be a pretty bad operator not to operate. Try operating half the big concepts that you get in these places. Try opening up in Huddersfield, Stoke-on-Trent, or the Gorbals in Glasgow or something like that, and see how far you get then. Indeed. Well, I mean, put it this way, right? Out of 7.4 billion people who live on the planet, do you want to know the one thing that every single person on planet Earth has in common? Yeah. Not one of us had any say in where, when, or what circumstances we're born. And here's a little gem for you. Okay, go ahead. Which is pretty obvious. Can't wait. If Boris Johnson was born on the same day, the same month, the same second as he was, but he was born in the Gorbals in Glasgow, or Croxteth in Liverpool, or in or in Stoke-on-Trent, Hanley and Stoke-on-Trent, he would not be Prime Minister.
Yeah, indeed, here to that as well.
When you get everything bulldozed and handed to you on a plate, and and you go through this whole system, well, that's the type of people that are running the country now.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you there, Dan. But I'm glad you mentioned Wavertree there, because I just published an article through the Vida Liverpool magazine about Wavertree Town Hall. I've just done a feature on that. Wavertree, it's a beautiful story. Wavertree Town Hall's got a lot of history as a building. I think George Harrison, his birth was registered there.
A Picton clock there.
By the Picton clock. And the Beatles have played there as the Quarrymen. It's got a hell of a lot of history, Wavertree Town Hall, and unfortunately it got left to ruin. It was complete dilapidation. Two wonderful ladies.
Not by the council, was it?
Well...
But too busy building another £50 million
no doubt.
Or something like that.
But two amazing ladies took it on, Natalie and Lisa, and they've restored it to its former glory. In fact, probably even better actually. If you go in Wavertree Town Hall now, when they took it over, there was holes in the ceiling. It's an iconic historic building of Liverpool, celebrating its 150th year today. Holes in the floor, you can see the cellar, a complete and utter dilapidated ruin. And these two ladies have taken it over, and it's stunning now, and I think there's a real beauty. It's almost like, I suppose, if you want a pet dog or pet cat, there's a real beauty of going to the pound to save. It's amazing to have a dog, but to rescue one.
Always do that. I was working with one of the group. Mark Abraham and Sarah Clover ran the campaign. It was Lucy's Law, and it was banning third-party puppy sales, so I ended up in 10 Downing Street, not for one of Boris's party, hasten to that. Quite a bizarre afternoon. I was chasing a dog around the back garden with Brian May from Queen and who else? Eamon Holmes. Sure, people. But yeah, we got Lucy's Law through, and that was a real testament to Mark Abraham as well, who's a vet in Brighton. And he was just appalled about the way the whole industry was going when you get these dogs, which are just literally factory sort of like just breeding machines.
Yeah.
So my last two dogs, but the last dogs got now Archie's a rescue dog, and I think that our old offices in Birkenhead, the pound was around the corner, and every time we go past and hear these poor little mites, on death row. I think you can get a real loving, great pet from a someone like Dogs Trust.
Indeed.
TCA.
Rescuing something, whether it be a building, a pet, rescuing and salvaging something, there's a real magic and beauty in that for sure.
And also salvaging materials as well for this. We got contacted by some builders and they were knocking down whole pubs. And literally the whole lot was just getting knocked down and going in landfill, and we gave them a couple of grand, went round, and we got fridges out of them, we got lights, we got ripped out chairs and benches. All of this would have just been thrown away, and we live in this throwaway society.
Indeed.
You don't fix anything now, you just lob it away.
Consumers.
Well, it's actually planned obsolescence. There's light bulbs. There's a light bulb in a fire station in America that's still on after 80 or 100 years. Right, and guess what? The light bulb can last 100 years, but then there's no second sale. So the big light bulb companies got together and went, hang on a second, let's make them last 12 months. Yeah. Because then we've got customers for life. And you can go down the list of that. Don't get me started on
I love it. Yeah. I don't think there's a subject in the world.
I'm holding back here. It needs to be deplatformed.
I know, I was a little bit nervous before the show, I have to admit. There's not a subject in the world Dan can't talk about, with passion, I may add.
There's quite a few, there's certain ones. And
I think that's another thing, I've really admired about you since knowing you, Dan, these last few years. You are a trailblazer and a trendsetter. You're not scared to speak out about things. You're very vocal about things, fearlessly vocal. And I admire that about you. I think that, you're not just going to sit back and let injustices happen, and let scandals happen. You're here to make a change,
Doesn't always help, like the name change of a pub put me back a bit.
The name change of the pub, we all know about that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got to wrap up soon. There's another track I know that you're desperate for me to play, so we need to do that before the news. Before we finish
tell you
off,
a bit about it.
what's that?
The Beatles.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Well, you know what?
Right?
It was the first year that we were trading in the pub. We had an old boy in who's a regular, and I said, "What are you doing Christmas Day?" And he went, "Oh, he goes, I'm busy." I said, "Oh, well, why are you doing? Are you going out?" And he said, "No." I said, "You got family coming to you?" And he went, "No, the buses are off." I said, "So are you on your own?" And he went, "Yeah." And I just thought, "No, you're not. We're not going to have anyone on their own in New Brighton on Christmas Day." And I got some chefs together, and I think we put on a Christmas meal for anyone who was on their own. And it was just such a nice day. We had people coming in, all dressed up, and we had people calling us from like Canada and New Zealand, a couple of places saying my parent, my dad lives on his own, my mum died, we live abroad, we couldn't get back, and we put taxis on to pick them up, bring them in there, and it's a community spirit, and it's a brilliant day seeing them all dressed up for the day. So this particular song is one that really stuck in my mind, especially when I was delivering newspapers around. I'd deliver to people who were on their own. There was a guy called Alan B. Oliver, and he lived on Dudley Street, and I delivered newspapers to him, and one year he died, and my mum went to a funeral with me, and there's literally half a dozen people there, and you think, what type of life stories do these people have? And at the end of their life, they're just on their own. And a pub is a public house, and you're meant to invite people in. So this one's Eleanor Rigby. Okay, well, before we finish on Eleanor Rigby, got to say a massive thank you, Dan, for coming on. Thank you, mate. Thank you. The time goes so quick, doesn't it? I mean, I think we could talk all night. I think Andy's Jive Time show, which is on next, which is fantastic, by the way, guys. Andy, do you mind if we stay another couple of hours and you swear it this week, mate? Is that all right? And also a big shout out to Lynn and Liam, because they have just stuck it out here. Legends. I remember meeting them, a few years ago. They just stuck it out, and sitting in the studio, it looks absolutely amazing. Really does.
Can I just say something? A big shout out to Dan, because this wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for him.
Well, Liam's just said there, if it wasn't for Dan, actually, this
helped us immensely.
Beautiful thing. If it wasn't for Dan, this studio wouldn't exist. I think you helped. Give you a bit of moral support. A little bit like I did with you. I think one last little shout out as well, actually, just before we go into Eleanor Rigby. I missed an email there from Jill Doyle. Hi Justin and Dan, good friend of mine Jill. What a great show again this evening. New Brighton is definitely has the bohemian vibe right now, thankfully. Hope Anti-Supermarket, such a great venue. Fantastic gig the other week, Revo. A creative hub is what's needed for the future. I totally agree with Dan regarding Brooklyn and Manhattan. New Brighton versus Liverpool. I actually thought about this before regarding the bus taxis, boat ferry. It's a brilliant idea. Keep up the great work, Dan. I can't believe someone can talk more than you, Justin. Love you, Jill. I think I've met me match with the old conversations, haven't I, this evening? Thanks so much, Dan, and what an amazing inspiration you are. It's been really appreciate it. Absolutely brilliant. So we're finishing on this. You've been listening to me, Justin Hopper, La Vida Liverpool, live on the tropical banks of the Mersey here on New Brighton Radio, and we've got our special guest, Dan Davies. Guys, if you're not from New Brighton, come on down.